Hey guys, it's Cece, and today I am here to talk about all of the books that I read in the month of July. So I had super intense reading plans for July, which didn't fully pan out, but I do still think it was a pretty amazing reading month overall. My goals in July included rereading the entire Harry Potter series, as well as reading 7 books during the reading rush. I accomplished one of those goals. I only read the first 3 Harry Potter books, and I am very nearly done with Goblet of Fire, but that still means that I read a ton in July, and I'm really proud of what I accomplished. If you haven't already checked out my reading rush vlogs, I did vlogs for like every couple of days and was uploading them throughout the week, so definitely go check out those vlogs. I think they're pretty fun. It was interesting to challenge myself to film and upload vlogs on the same day. That is something I've never attempted before, so pretty proud of that. But I have a few books here that I'm going to review. 10 to be exact. We're gonna get through 10 books. So yeah, I hope you're ready. We're gonna start with the books that I liked least and work up to the books I liked the most. So let's just jump in. Also, yes, all my Funko Pops are gone. I'm trying to pack to move right now, so this might change a lot in the next few videos. So the first book I'm going to talk about is the least favorite book of mine that I read in July, and that is My Life as an Ice Cream Sandwich by Zoboi. This is a middle grade book that is coming out in August. Is it out already? No, coming out at the end of August. I picked this book up at Book Expo and read it during the reading rush, and I didn't like it at all, which I feel like a lot of these are the cases going to be. If you watch my reading rush vlog, you probably already know how I feel about these books. I'm gonna do my best to maybe try to offer like new insights into my feelings on the books so that you're still getting some new interesting content. This is about a 12-year-old girl who has grown up in Alabama, and she goes to stay with her father for what she believes is a week at his home in Harlem, but that visit keeps getting longer and longer, and she is not allowed to speak to her grandfather, who is the person in her life she's closest to. He is a NASA engineer, and basically Ebony Grace, the main character, and her grandfather have created this entire imaginary sci-fi world where they both escape to, and Ebony Grace doesn't really know how to survive in Harlem with people who aren't willing to play this pretend game with her. She doesn't know how to understand the world outside of this sci-fi imagined world that she has been existing in with her grandfather. This is a book set in the 1980s, I believe in 84. Yes, the summer of 84. And I didn't like it, and this was pretty much my last straw when it comes to Zoboi. Just in realizing that her writing is not for me. I've really tried. I've given it my all. I have now read a YA book of hers, a short story of hers, and a middle grade book of hers, and I haven't liked a single one of them. In fact, I believe I've given all 3 of those 2 stars. So unfortunately, I just don't think me and Zoboi are meant to be. I think it's because her main characters frustrate me in a way I can't always fully articulate. Ebony Grace, for example, reads as so petulant and childish, and not like 12-year-old childish, because I read middle grade enough to know, like, how we are depicting 12-year-olds, and I remember what I was like as a 12-year-old. She acts like a child. She acts like she's 7 years old. She won't communicate with anybody. She refuses to bend on any of the things that she believes about life. No matter how many times people try to tell her that they want to include her in things, she just refuses to do anything but sort of spout the same nonsense over and over again. And I know that it's a coping mechanism, and I understand that, but like, it gets so repetitive and frustrating after the first 2 chapters for her to say the same thing over and over again to everyone and be surprised every time when she gets a negative reaction. It's even more frustrating once you get to the end of this book, and the conclusion and the entire point of the story is just sort of tacked on in the last 20 pages. It doesn't read like middle grade, because all of it is steeped way too much in 80s sci-fi culture that I don't think a middle grade audience is going to understand, and it isn't complex enough to be above that reading level, so overall, I just didn't like any part of this book. A few people asked me about this in my Reading Rush vlog, so I gave this 2 out of 5 stars, and a lot of people were like, hey, why didn't you give that book a 1 star since you didn't like it? I reserve my 1-star reviews for books that I find offensive. So if there's something deeply problematic or there is harmful representation, those are the books that I deem 1-star books. For books that I just don't like, if they still have some element of representation that's worthwhile, it gets 2 stars because it means that there's some redeeming quality. So this was a 2-star read. I didn't find anything inherently problematic about the representation, I just didn't like it. Yeah. Next up, the other 2-star book I read was Black Wings Beating by Alex London. This is an arc, but the book has been out for a while. I believe it came out last year, and it is part of a duology about twins Kylie and Bryson, and this is a fantasy duology set in a world where, like, all of the different religions and beliefs are all built around birds. So, Kylie and Bryson are from a community where falconers are really important. Their entire method of trade is trapping birds, selling birds, and then occasionally fighting birds. And then there are, like, other factions who believe that trapping birds is inherently a terrible thing and that these skies should be free. There are a lot of different religions, and all of them are based around the sky and birds. And then Bryson gets roped into trying to capture this mythic bird that no one has captured. Like, a couple of people in history have captured it, and he is after this bird in order to save his boyfriend's life, and then his sister ends up tagging along because Bryson's kind of an idiot and she knows that he's just going to get himself killed unless he has some backup. This is another book where maybe it was just a me thing, but Kylie and Bryson are both utterly unlikable main characters. From beginning to end, there is very little character growth. There's this thing that some books do where a man's ego is somehow the most important element of the story. Characters with big egos are fine, but the point is everyone builds their entire life around supporting Bryson's ego, and that's never questioned. And anyone who does anything that might knock his ego is, like, pointed out as the bad guy. Kylie in particular, she can't do anything in her life because it might damage Bryson's very fragile sense of how important he is, despite the fact that he's not good at what he does, and Kylie's incredibly good at it. And that's never questioned. I could not stand it. This did have sort of a benefit of Bryson is gay, and being queer seems to be very normalized in this world. Like, plenty of people talk about characters dating girls or boys, which, like, is very binary, and I wish that there was stuff beyond that, but I will give this points for being sort of free of homophobia. I don't know if it was free of transphobia. Maybe that's something that's explored in the second book. I also believe that Kylie is, at the very least, a romantic. I'm not sure if she's supposed to be asexual, and I'm not really sure how that's going to be explored in a second book, but I didn't like this. I thought it was all over the place. This was like Things Happen, the book. Just nonsense things that get people off of the path of the goal for no other point than, this really needs to have another 50 pages worth of plot, so if you could just, like, throw something in there. I did not enjoy the process of reading it. I gave it 2 stars. Next we have some graphic novels, pretty much all of which I gave 4 stars. All of which? Yeah, I gave all 3 of these 4 stars. First one we have is Genderqueer, a memoir by Maia Kobabe. This is a memoir about Maia's experience coming to terms with being genderqueer as well as asexual. The art is super, super simple, but really beautiful. And I think that this memoir has a lot of value for a lot of different people. If you are someone who knows a lot about the queer community, I think that there is something that you can get out of this story about Maia's story. And if you are sort of new to understanding queer terminology, this is a really great exploration of a lot of different ideas so that you can learn a lot alongside Maia. I thought that this was just, like, a really interesting read. Simple, the art was great, and I wound up giving it 4 out of 5 stars. I definitely encourage you to check it out. I also read The Giver. The original book is by Lois Lowry, and this was adapted and illustrated by P. Craig Russell. The Giver is my favorite book of all time, arguably, so I was really interested to read a graphic novel version of the story to see it sort of visualized. I also read this for the challenge in the readathon to read a book and then watch the adaptation, so I watched the movie The Giver, which was infuriating from an adaptation standpoint. It was just infuriating. This was good. I don't think that it brought anything new or revolutionary to the story of A Giver, which is, The Giver is about a boy named Jonas, turning 12, and in this, like, future society, when you turn 12, you are assigned your role, the role that you're going to have in your community for the rest of your life, and Jonas is given the role of the receiver, which means that he basically starts receiving memories from the previous receiver, who is now being called the Giver. And it's a book that a lot of people read in 6th grade or, you know, like around middle school, and that's when I read it, but I've reread it numerous times. I always get something new out of it. I don't know that this brought anything new. It was interesting to see some, like, interesting ways to work around color, because color is a big deal in the story, and it's interesting to see how memories and transmitting memories worked in a visual sense. So I really liked it for that, but considering The Giver is, like, my favorite book, I still only give this 4 stars because I think that reading the book is just as easy, and I get more out of the book than I got out of this graphic novel. Still good. Still a 4-star read, just not as good as the original. The final graphic novel I have is Mooncakes by Wendy Zhu and Suzanne Walker. This is a graphic novel that's being released at the beginning of October. It is about a young witch who works at her grandmother's bookshop, and then she comes across a werewolf who happens to be her childhood friend, childhood crush as well. And the two of them are trying to solve a mystery that is plaguing Tam, the werewolf character. This is a really delightful, soft read. Tam is non-binary and uses they/them pronouns, and Nova has 2 grandmothers, so it's 2 grandmothers, like, who are married. They're the sweetest old couple in the universe. Nova and Tam are also both Chinese American, and this is really delightful. If you liked The Witch Boy by Molly Knox Ostertag, I definitely think that you're going to enjoy this. It's like a really good, simple, middle grade graphic novel that's full of a lot of different discussions of family and expectations, coming from a loving family, coming from a family that doesn't understand you, and, like, the healing power of love. I thought this was delightful. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars, and I can't wait to buy a finished copy come October, because the color hasn't been added to this arc yet, only the first chapter was in full, so I'm really excited to eventually reread this in full color, because it was delightful. Now, books from here on out, I'm talking about 5-star books, so I'm just gonna put Harry Potter in right here. I reread the first 3 books, Sorcerer's Stone, Chamber of Secrets, and Prisoner of Azkaban. I absolutely loved all 3 of them. As usual, I gave all 3 of them 5 out of 5 stars. Obviously, I have a reading vlog up for the first book already, if you want to check it out. It's like a 40-minute vlog of just all of the itty-bitty thoughts and details that I had while rereading this first book. And you will be getting some new vlogs soon for these next 2 books. I also read most of Goblet of Fire, so I'm working on that vlog as well. I'm almost done. It's always amazing to revisit this series and to see these characters again. I absolutely adore them. I feel like I've gotten a lot more, like, complex feelings from this reread because it's been like 4 years, so I'm curious to see how that's going to impact my feelings going forward into future books. But I hope that you're excited about future reading vlogs, because I really loved putting that first one together, and I can't wait to put these other ones together and share them with you, even if they're going to be real fucking long. I also have a book I'm only going to talk about for a minute, and that is Call Down the Hawk by Maggie Stiefvater. This is just the sampler copy, but I did get the chance to read the full book during the reading rush. This is a book that's coming out in November, on November 5th, and it is the spin-off to the Raven Cycle. It's the Dreamer trilogy following Ronan Lynch. I have a video that I made before I read the book about my thoughts and theories on Call Down the Hawk. If you want to go watch that, I think it's pretty fun. I loved Call Down the Hawk. I definitely think it's worth it. We are not being let down by this new book. I gave it 5 stars, and I'll probably review it more in depth once we get closer to the release date, but until then, just know I gave it 5 stars, just like I gave all the books in the Raven Cycle, and I think it was really fascinating and wonderful to read a new story about Ronan. So, look forward to that book, November 5th. I've had my copy pre-ordered for months, so I will definitely be rereading it once it comes out in a finished copy. Okay, and finally we have The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo, which, wow, I did not expect this book to be at the top of my list. So this is a book about Xiomara, who uses poetry to sort of understand her relationship to the world. So she's been writing poems about her relationship with her twin brother, about her relationship with her body ever since she developed curves, and how that has completely changed how people around her perceive her. She's also trying to understand and work through her mother's relationship with religion, her own relationship with religion, and then she discovers her school has a new slam poetry club, and it sort of starts this little fire of hope that maybe she could continue to use her words in a way that is going to impact other people positively. If you want to watch me sob on camera, I read this book during the last day of the reading rush, so it's in my final reading rush vlog, and I sobbed through a bit of trying to talk about this book because part of it impacted me so heavily, namely Xiomara sort of struggling with her relationship to religion and struggling to connect with her mother when her mother is so deeply religious. Reading that bit of this book was very emotional for me. I kept reading this book and being like, I don't understand why people have said that they sobbed reading this book, because I've never had a super emotional reaction to poetry. And then I got to the end and I was like, oh, there's that emotional reaction. If there's one thing that this and Jenna's book, Water Runs Red, have taught me this year, it's that I allowed my perception of poetry in high school and in college to color my own feelings with poetry, which is, it was only ever treated as an assignment, so I never developed an emotional connection to this method of storytelling. And it's a real shame that that happened, because this book and Water Runs Red have both been 5-star reads for me, and I've cried through both of them, and it's really taught me to work on developing a new relationship with poetry that I'm really looking forward to exploring. Because I thought this was a truly valuable and wonderful piece of fiction, and I loved it. It's one of my new favorite books of all time. Also, this book doesn't super get into this, but Xiomara's twin brother is gay, and that is something that is sort of kind of barely explored in the book, so if you're looking for some of that representation as well, that's there. Overall, I just think that this is an incredibly valuable piece of literature that I would recommend to anyone, whether or not you have a relationship with poetry already, if you love it, if you aren't sure about it, just give this book a shot. I clearly loved it and gave it 5 out of 5 stars, so very, very glad that I got to read this story in July. Okay, though, that is it. We are at the end of the books that I read in the month of July. What did you think of this stack of books? Are you interested in any of these books? If you weren't before, have I maybe got you to be interested? Let me know all of those things. Plus, let me know what your favorite book that you read in July was down in the comments below. I can't wait to read through them, maybe get some new books on my TBR. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in another video very soon. Bye!